Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. This is Rachel Novak and Ed Stroud coming at you with the BUILD Mastermind in Real Academy, also part of the Agent Growth Hub, our little group that is open to all real members as well as all brokerages. We put this together months and months back because we, as the four leaders of this, me and Ed, and then Jim Black and my husband, Mike Novak, we have a huge passion for helping agents really build personal and professional mastery. And our goal is really just to share things that we've done, create a format for us to be able to discuss things that do work, that don't work, and everything in between. So we discuss everything from specific processes and systems to strategy, negotiation tactics, as well as personal stuff like fitness and healthy living. So it's been a pretty fun ride so far. We are so proud to be a part of Real Academy now. This is our second week in Real Academy. But obviously there's multiple people in here who aren't part of Real as well, which is pretty fun. So today, Ed and I are going to be walking through listing process efficiencies. Now, I think 3 weeks back, if you've been following the BUILD Mastermind prior to Real Academy, we discussed the listing process, like the listing appointment process. So if you haven't seen it yet, we do have a YouTube channel that replays those. But we discussed everything in regards to preparing for the listing appointment, setting the listing appointment, conversations at the listing appointment, how to set expectations with commissions, setting expectations for next steps. And we kind of took it to that point. So today we're going to take it from where we left off a couple weeks ago, and we're going to move through and share with you some ideas and some things that we do specifically in order to create a more efficient listing process. Part of our job as real estate agents and real estate team leaders especially is to reduce the amount of friction that people feel in a real estate transaction. We are professional problem solvers. It is our job to make sure that if there is an issue, if there is a problem, if there is a concern, that it's addressed, that expectations are met, and that we are providing the resolution to those things. So that is all a part of this listing process efficiency. So first things first, I want to kind of talk like a little bit more about the goals, right? What is the goal of when you're at a listing appointment and you're trying to set expectations for the next steps? The goal of that appointment and coming out of that appointment is that the person understands exactly what is happening next. So many people go to the listing appointment and then they sign the paperwork and they're like, okay, well, I'll be in touch. And that is so unnerving for people. Like, this is their home. They're going to be preparing their house for strangers to walk through it. We have to put ourselves in this empathetic position and understand that these people need significant guidance. They need to know exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and you be their guide the whole way. So the goal at the actual listing appointment and setting expectations is to provide the roadmap for these clients in order for them to know what to do next. And then setting the expectation of communication back with them. And then, of course, fulfilling that communication. So Ed, when you guys are on listing appointments and you're setting the expectations for next steps and communication standards, how are you setting those specifically for, like, this is how often we'll be communicating with you, and what cadence do you guys follow if you have one?
Yeah, number one, you said something about you always need to tell them what's next, right? I think those are habits you need to build in this business, number one, right? No matter where you're at, you should always be saying this is what's going to happen next. And if you have a transaction coordinator, or if you've hired a transaction coordinator, if you have an outsourced transaction coordinator, you need to make them have those same habits of being able to say, we just finished this is what's coming next, and this is how it's going to affect you. So you need to train your people to do that, number one. From a listing standpoint, I think when you're on the listing presentation, you have to ask questions, because some people will tell you, I want communicated with every day, and some people will say, just whenever you do is fine. So, and everything in between, right? Part of that goes back to the DISC, where certain people communicate certain ways, and it's not always the way we communicate. So I think we have to dig in and find out what they really want. And then the other thing that we do is when we're on a listing appointment, we have a note sheet where we actually write down this stuff. So not only I know it if I'm on a listing appointment, but it goes back and it gets put into a system where everybody knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, the director of ops, knows how they want to be communicated and how often. The transaction coordinator, the marketing director, everybody's kind of on the same page all of a sudden. And I don't care if you're a solo agent or not, there's other people that will interact with this, and we all need to be on the same page, right?
100%, exactly right. So one of the ways that we do that, and this is one of the tools that we use, so I want you guys to take note of this specifically, is our team years ago created specific Google Forms for every single type of listing. So when we're at that listing appointment, I mean, the amount of information that we have to gather for a listing it's a lot. It's 7, 8 pages of information that we have to be able to convey in an intelligent way to prospective buyers, right? And put it out in the MLS on the market. So what we did was we created Google Forms specific to residential properties, condos, and then of course, manufactured homes. And the next step of the process after we sign that listing is they're going to get an email with a link to that Google form for that person, for the seller to fill out all of the information that they know about the property. Now, over the years, what we have added into that Google form are subtle expectation and communication setting details. So for instance, in our Google form, we ask specifically, how often do you want to be communicated with? And we give them the option of bi-weekly, once a week, whenever something of note happens. We give them the option to say, this is how often I'd like to be communicated with. And so they're letting us know. We're also setting expectations in regards to our communication standards. So for instance, on our team, we have the standard that we're going to connect back with you within 4 hours via text message, within 6 hours via a phone call, unless it's after 8 p.m. and it's not having to do with an immediate transaction or contract with a deadline. So we put in there, I understand, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that the Novak team will communicate with me within 4 to 6 hours via text or call. And if it's after 8 p.m., I will hear from them by the next morning. And they have to say, yes, I understand. Okay. These are all very subtle ways in order to be like, okay, I read that, I hear that, I understand this now. So there's so many details that we have to convey, that we have to talk about, that we have to share at the listing appointment. Having an actual form that specifies all these communication standards and then also asks them their input. Because has anybody ever been on a listing appointment and the client's like, oh, please make sure to tell about the orchard, right? I have these apple trees out in the back that I really want, everybody's going to love them. And we get deer in the side yard, right? Like people have very specific things that they love about their home that they feel are going to be selling points. It is not our job to tell them what is or isn't going to be a selling point if they feel like it's going to be. Our job is to make them feel heard, that we understand that that's a priority. So one of the questions on our Google form is also, what 5 to 10 things would you like to see in the marketing remarks of your listing? And that validates them in order to be like, we're going to weave that into the marketing remarks so they feel heard, they feel understood, and they feel like, hey, this might be a selling point, right? So really, really subtle things. The other thing that this does, guys, I'm sure you know what CYA means. Do I need to say it? Okay. CYA, this Google form that we have created for them to go through the entire thing, accept the communication expectations, accept the details of the home itself, provide us details of the home. We ask very specific questions. How old is every appliance? How old is the roof? Does it have a warranty? We ask every single thing we could possibly ask on this form. And then when it's completed, when they send it through, we save it as a PDF digital file to their digital folder. So now I'm able to reference back to it. And if they come to me and a detail is incorrect in the listing, I can then say, I'm so sorry, that's what was provided on the Google form you sent in. So it is not my fault anymore. I didn't get anything wrong. And not that we're trying to catch or bait and switch by any means, but it's a way for us to be able to maintain the integrity of our work, okay, by them providing us that information. Now, a lot of people, I think, Ed, you guys probably have like an intake form, right? So you kind of go through it with the client and fill out, a form. Walk us through kind of your guys' process on that side.
We actually do it through Sisu, which is crazy. So Sisu
Nice. Okay.
allows you to now electronically do that, build the forms out. And the cool thing is it's already back to everybody digitally. And
Mhm.
we typically go through, so the other note I made is when we go on listing presentations, we act like we're already working for them. We act like we already have the listing, right? So one of the things we do is we actually walk through the house with a details sheet that helps you put it on the MLS. And then we have our own digital side that we do while we're speaking to them. But we'll walk through their house and go, okay, this is this type of siding, this type of roof, this type of whatever. And so we're acting like, hey, we're pretty confident we're going to get this listing. We're going to go to work for you. And we leave the seller's disclosure. We let them fill those out. But we do the details there. And then we have an intake form we call pass the baton is what we call it. And it allows us to pass that baton over to client care and for them to get everything going and setting up marketing. One of the things that we do with that while we're there is we also say, when would you like your photos and 3D scan and video and what all the stuff we do. We tell them about that, but then we can actually schedule that right there with them through Calendly. So we hooked Calendly up through our marketing department in-house. So now we can say, I have available appointments. Here it is Thursday, right? I have available appointments Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of next week. And so we can set that appointment right there. Again, I'm acting like we already got the listing, right? We set all that, we fill out the forms, do all the stuff. I mean, unless somebody stops us and says, hold on here, I didn't say you could list my house. That's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. So we just intake and go. I don't know if you're wanting to get
Love it.
detail on the intake or not, Rachel, or you're just saying there's an intake form and you're collecting the info so you can get it back. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, if there's anything other than just kind of the basic home details that everybody needs to provide, for the MLS, like that's kind of what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So one thing, so at the listing appointment, I love that, Ed, because you're exactly right. You walking in and you're basically talking to them as if we're already working for them, right? Like we're going to assume positive intent here. We're going to assume that we're working for you. That's why we're in your home. We're going to be working together. And that's the language that we're using through that entire appointment, through that entire process, right? Is when we do this, and this is how this process is. I think that, as I've mentioned before in multiple other masterminds, that being able to sell a process, being able to explain that this is how it's done, this is the process with which we do this, and having a track record for it is absolutely key, right? And how do you build a track record? You do it over and over and over and over, and you fulfill it over and over and over and over until you have a bunch of happy clients. So after the appointment, of course, we're setting the expectation that they're going to get that form and they're going to fill out this form, and that's CYA for us, and it's also information necessary for the listing. The second thing that our team does is we schedule an almost immediate follow-up appointment, right? So again, we're already working for you. So, hey, next week or within the next 7 days, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do what we call in our team a home editing walkthrough. And I'm going to go through your home with you. And it's only been about 20, 30 minutes. We're going to go room by room. We're going to look at every single detail, every wall, every register, every light switch cover, every single thing. And I'm going to take notes throughout the entire process. You're going to tell me things that maybe you think you should update or things you should address. And I'll let you know if those things are going to provide you a good return on that investment money, or if it's not necessary in order to get the number that we're trying to get. Right?
Rachel,
That's where our
question.
expertise comes in. Sure.
Question there. Why, and I'm curious what other people have to say here too. Why a second appointment to do that? Because I know a lot of realtors try to do it all up front. What's your thought there? Why do you want that second appointment?
So it depends on the client. So
Okay.
there have been times that I do it right then and there, and I'm there and we're working together. For the clients that are hesitant, for the clients that are maybe a little ways out, they need to simmer on it. Really high C's, need to look at the numbers, and they need to read the contracts, and they need to absorb all the information that was just given to them. Right. The follow-up appointment is in order to close that loop. So
Okay.
setting the expectation for this next appointment in the next 7 days, we'll come out, we'll get the paperwork taken care of, and then we'll do the walkthrough with the home, right?
And
And for them, it doesn't feel as scary.
I think that's key because again, you didn't close the deal yet. Therefore, why give all the value before you
Right.
close the deal, right? You're giving a lot of
Exactly.
value, but that's key value. So if you go tell them, hey, this needs done, this needs done, this needs done, they hire somebody else. Well, you gave some more value there that you probably shouldn't have gave. So that's one of the reasons I was
Exactly.
asking the question.
I think
That's
also
exactly right. Yeah.
it's also important that to not overwhelm them too. Like if like Rachel said, it depends on the client, but if somebody's lived in their house like 15, 20 years and they've got a lot to do, if you just talk through this whole process of moving and then now you're telling them all this homework that they have to do, it can be way overwhelming before they've had a chance to digest that it's real and they're actually moving.
Right.
So I feel I almost never personally do that value of the walkthrough at the same time as the listing appointment, simply because I can tell they're starting to glaze over and it's going to feel like scary, more scary than it should.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the value that we bring is, of course, what you're saying, Ed. So in that follow-up appointment, that home editing walkthrough, we walk through with them and we really, there's a combination of things that we do at this appointment, guys. This is an opportunity to build more rapport as a person with this client, right? It's an opportunity to spend time with them. It's an opportunity to address fears or concerns and also validate things that they've done. No homeowner ever in the history of the world doesn't want to share what all the updates that they've done to the home. They want to share with you every single thing they've done. They want to share with you this favorite wall color that they painted and they've repainted 14 times. And like, so this is an opportunity to validate them.
Well, I was just going to say, what's the first thing they want to do when you show up to their home? Oh, let me show you my house,
Show you everything.
right?
Yes, exactly.
You're exactly right. And 9 times out of 10, I'm saying we're going to look at it, but let's sit down first. Let's have the conversation first.
Yeah.
I want to go
Yeah.
there first. So you're exactly right. That's and to validate that they did some nice stuff and that their house is nice, that goes a long way.
Exactly. And most people have, in my experience, the majority of the conscientious homeowners think that they need to do a lot more than they actually do. And so being able to validate the fact that actually the way that you live is wonderful. Like, and I always use examples like I've been through homes that are messy. I've seen closets that are exploding. Like yours is beautiful. This is perfect, right? Being able to kind of ease their mind, number one, reinforces you as a professional, and also they tend to like you more because you like their stuff. Like, let's be honest, this is what it's about, right?
This is where
So
you get to
I
show
think,
you're the expert, right?
yeah,
Now I'm
exactly.
giving you stuff that's going to make you money or cost you money. And the stuff that
Yeah.
you're telling me, I think that's going to cost you money. There's no return in investment, and we're going to be able to sell it without this. But this over here that you didn't even have on your radar, this is where the dollars are going to change. And I think that's what shows us as the expert at that point.
100%. Yes. I tell my clients specifically because a lot of people, they'll, maybe not a lot of people, but some clients, certain personalities who are very skeptical will kind of test you a little bit, and they'll kind of want to hear if they should do this and why and what we can, they're going to test your kind of knowledge. And so part of what I do is when I set the expectation that anything that I'm going to suggest that you do is going to have at minimum a 2-to-1 return on investment. Right? If you spend that money or you spend that time, we're going to see at minimum twice the amount of money you spent back on that sales price, right? And then there's also the expectation to set that there are going to be some things that you need to do around the home that get it up to the number that we're discussing right now in the market, right? If your wall paint is terribly dull and there's fingerprints everywhere, if you've got, missing trim pieces around doors, or you've got missing handles or hardware on cabinets, like there are things that you're going to need to do and invest in because, and you don't want to say this to the client, but because that is part of just home maintenance, right? So they have to do some of the home maintenance items in order sometimes to get it up to that number that we're talking about. Then there are other items that will increase that amount that they may be able to get.
Right.
Does anybody have any examples of that? Or anybody can give me 1 or 2 examples of the highest ROI things that a seller can do? Crickets.
I'm going to throw out paint. I mean, paint.
Thank you, Ed.
I mean, paint just goes a million miles, right? It just cleans everything up, smells good. Yeah, that's a good one.
Curb
Paint,
appeal.
absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say flooring as well. I mean,
Carpet
buyers
flooring,
will
yeah.
walk through something and think that if there's really messed up carpet, you know, they overestimate in their mind what that cost will be. It's really not as expensive as people think to replace a room of carpet or change it out for LVP. So flooring is definitely, I mean, it's more expensive typically than paint in my experience finding estimates and things, but and having clients do it, but it really can change the perception of value for buyers.
The same with
Absolutely.
handles on like the kitchen cabinets, those kind of things. I find that people, when they come in, they're like, oh, wow, it's fancy. Rather than something that's old and vintage looking, right?
100%. Yeah, that's a really inexpensive way to update a kitchen quick. Even if the cabinets aren't super modern, you can update the hardware and it will change the whole look of the space for sure.
Put in light bulbs.
Anybody else?
Oh my goodness. Put the light bulb out.
Good call.
Man.
Thank you, Nikki.
And have them match,
can we,
or your photographers will hate you.
I was just gonna say, Natasha, can we please not do like daylight, over here and then like a soft glow over here, please? Like all the same color of light bulbs. Yes, Michelle, fresh landscaping. And that is one that people overestimate constantly. They're like, oh, I need to go buy, $100 worth of flowers and all new bark, and I need to spend an entire weekend. Like typically, no. Typically, it's just like weeding it, raking it up to make it look fresh, adding maybe 1 or 2 flowers, and you're good to go, right?
Pressure wash.
That's a great one as well.
Yes.
Yep. Pressure washing, gutters, rim. I can't tell you how many clients that I have had literally only repaint their trim around their exterior windows and doors. So the home itself, like the siding looked fine, but the trim maybe was white and it was starting to look just dingy, right? And so I said, look, I don't need you to go like repaint the whole house. It's going to be $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 depending on the size of the house. But I do need you to spend this $1,200 having somebody come out and just repaint the trim. Boom, crisps up the entire exterior of the home. That's a great, great one that I've used multiple times.
Also, take the moss off of your roof, please.
Yes. Moss removal treatment, please. Yes, absolutely. They do. 100%. Great ones. They're awesome. Love it. So fulfilling this home editing checklist, okay, as we're going through and we're discussing all these things that they need to do, our team breaks it down incredibly specifically. So we're fortunate enough to have an amazing listing coordinator now. Her name is Julie. She's on the call. So it's her AOR, her responsibility on our team now to take that home editing checklist and create it into a beautiful form and send a PDF to the client. We break it down room by room: bathroom, master bedroom or primary bedroom, primary ensuite, living room, bonus room, laundry room. Every single room is broken down, and then we create a checklist with all the suggested items to be done. Okay, I'll post an example in the Agent Growth Hub Facebook group, and then I can probably share one in the comments in the Real Academy replay. But one of the subtle things that we did is I noticed when we're sending a 2 or 3 page checklist to somebody, it can be kind of overwhelming, and it doesn't feel negative, but it feels like, oh my gosh, there's so much wrong with my home that I need to address. So one of the very subtle things that we started doing several years ago was we started adding in some of the positives in that checklist. So for instance, the bedspread in that room looks great, and we checked it off for them. So when they now get this checklist, in almost every single room, they've got at least one thing that they've already done right that's pre-checked. And we have had so much more success with this being an incredibly efficient way for people to be like, this isn't insurmountable anymore. Now, like, I've already done these right things. I just have a couple things per room that need to be done. Boom, I'm ready. So these subtle little things, guys, help create such efficiencies in your processes. Okay. This is psychological. This is service, right? We're serving people.
I love that you already check off this. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I I mean, I get it, and I'm looking through it. It is. That's exactly right. It's positive reinforcement for the fact that they're already on the right track. Right. Yeah. And it brings you together as like, hey, we're in this together. We're pushing through this process together. You've already done some things. I'm just making a couple more suggestions here.
Right.
It also is super helpful for clients that are they have a lot of pride in how they've decorated their home, or certain things in their home that they really love and they think is wonderful. If you're like, yes, the furniture arrangement is awesome, don't move it. It makes them feel really good. I don't know why I always get these thumbs up when I'm talking. It's really funny. But anyways, yes, it kind of is a way to make them feel just generally good when it's a really scary process to start with.
Yeah, exactly. Again, reminder, our job is to reduce the amount of friction throughout this process. So any subtle little things that we can do will inherently make this process more efficient. Okay. I have done it the wrong way many times, and then I've learned the right way several times, and the right way is the way to go, guys, for sure. So for those of you not on a team, anybody who is in, either a single agent or you're an agent on a team that doesn't necessarily have a listing coordinator, I want to talk a little bit about organizing kind of the back end information and how to leverage a teammate or leverage a virtual assistant, a VA, for some of these processes. Because part of making processes more efficient as a real estate agent is doing as many things in our lane as we can, and outsourcing or delegating the things that take up our time but aren't sales related or aren't service related. Okay. So a couple of things that we have our VA and now, of course, our listing coordinator do on our team. We created an entire SOP, a listing coordination SOP that has templates with emails. So the VA can send an email to the title company and order title, right? So her kickoff is, I've got listing paperwork. I email her the listing paperwork. Now she goes in, she creates a folder in the drive file, and every single folder for every single client in the drive file is uniform, exactly the same format, so that we can organize it, and it's all alphabetical. Last name, comma, first name, dash, a home address, okay? Because you're gonna have repeat clients who sell more than one house over the years, okay? And then it's organized by month, it's organized by year. And then of course we have active, pending, and closed for each year, okay? So she can create the drive file. She then orders title. And that allows, she includes you on it, or the agent, she includes you on that, of course. And then when that comes back to you both, you have the opportunity to review it. She, of course, then saves it into the drive file, okay? She will also be the one to send the email with the Google form. So as I'm communicating with the client, I'm letting them know I have a team of people that help support me so that I can stay in my lane and just serve you. My job is to negotiate on your behalf. My job is to make sure that you understand exactly what this process is about. And these back end detail things, those are where I leverage so that I can stay right in front of you during this process. Okay. You don't have to do every single thing throughout this process to be a good real estate agent. The next thing is after she sends the Google form, she's created the drive folder, she's got the paperwork prepped. Now she's going to prep all of the other listing paperwork necessary for the transaction. So again, I have a list in the SOP. I have a list of all the listing paperwork that is necessary for this transaction. And the VA is going to prepare all of that listing paperwork. She's going to get the legal names in there because they were on the Google form and they're also on tax assessors. She's going to get all the legal names in there. She's going to make sure all of the details from that Google form that we've collected from the client are into the listing input form. Okay, so she transfers all that information into the listing form. And now it's prepped, ready for us to go in and review. Okay, and now the process that we've created is that Julie on our team goes in and reviews it, makes sure that, a lot of people don't know their type of foundation or their type of site, right? They get some details incorrect. So really important to audit that, of course, and make sure that that's all accurate information. But as we get closer to, now that paperwork is already prepped. So all you have to do is continue to follow up with that client, right? Once we send that checklist to the person, you have a reason every single week to call and check in with them. If you haven't provided them value or you haven't provided them any sort of homework or to do, you're calling just to check in. Just, hey, how are you? How's it going? Whereas with a home editing checklist, we have a process we're working through, right? We have something. Maybe they need vendors, maybe they need contractors, maybe they need quotes, right? We have a reason to be checking in with them. Now, throughout this pre-listing process, the expectation that we set on our team is that we've had people take 5 days between the home editing walkthrough to get everything done and try to go live on the market. And we've also had people take 3 years. And it does not matter whatsoever to me how long it takes you, because I am on your timeline. But I want to make sure that you have everything you need in the meantime. So I will continue to follow up with you weekly to make sure that you have everything that you need. And then I do it. Fulfillment. Ed, through the pre-listing process, what does your guys' cadence look like for follow-ups?
I would say that if we win the deal, then we go through electronically through CSU that, where we'll go in and enter all that information. We do have one VA, and we do have another listing transaction. Well, we call her client care, basically. But she's actually, so this is new to us over the last year. She's actually like a VA. She's in Louisiana. She came off of another team and this is what she did. And we hired her as she was moving to Louisiana. But I know Alex, our CEO, does a really good job of the systems. And in all reality, I'm probably out of my league a little bit here because of all the system changes that have happened with the director of ops. He's got it down where our VA does the stuff that doesn't touch the client, right? Send the contract off to the lender, to the title company, to the, everything that goes on that's not a communication, phone communication or verbal communication. The VA does all that, and the listing or the client care person does make the call and have the conversations. And then we also find that we need to keep so this is the interesting part between solo agent and team. On a solo agent side, you're either doing all that or you're doing what Rachel just said, you're putting a VA in place. And I think it's still important for you to make a call on a regular basis to your clients, even though all that's happening in the background. So with a VA in place, maybe you're okay with that VA calling and having that conversation. That's great if that's where you're at. We're not there yet, so we still have that call come from our client care or our agent sometimes. And the agent, I just want the agents to stay in touch with them and check in, make sure all's going well from that standpoint. And typically we get good remarks back saying, Amanda's our girl and she does a really good job of communicating and updating, follow-up emails after they communicate, which I think is super important because we can say we said something, but there's no paper trail there to say, remember I told you. So that all happens. And again, always, I mean, we always do this. Even within the emails, this is what's coming next. So to get super detail in that's probably not me. I could bring Alex back here real quick and he'd bore you for another hour on this.
Be able to spit some fire at us about this listing process for sure.
I mean, just this and building systems that, systems will change the game for you, especially if you have leverage. So if you do leverage to a VA, if you do leverage to somebody else, a lot of people spend the $300-400 to have a transaction coordinator outsourced. But man, here's what I think. I think number one, most agents, when they outsource to a $300-400 per deal, I don't think they set their boundaries on what they expect. I think the transaction coordinator says, this is what I do. Well, that's not good enough because you're a better agent than that. I don't want what the 1 or 2 deal an agent year gets. I want something a little better. So I think if you're doing that, I think you need to set those expectations. Take some of the lists that Rachel has, the ideas that we've been talking about, and say, what is it I want for my clients there? So I can raise that bar. And you'll probably raise that transaction coordinator's bar, quite honestly.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think it's really important to remember that when we're trying to be more efficient in a process, you have to slow down to speed up. You have to stop and you have to train and you have to get detailed and you have to write specific email templates or processes, step-by-step instructions in order to teach somebody to leverage for you the way that you need to be leveraged for. Because I've been in a position where I've done every single thing for every single listing, right? Multiple years in a row. I did every single thing from the staging to the walkthrough to the coordination to the I'm on site for the photos and I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm uploading the listing and I'm doing the pictures and I'm reorganizing the pictures and I'm putting the photo comments in the everything. And I started tracking how much time I was spending doing back-end paperwork stuff that the client knew nothing about. Okay. The client, all they understand is that we give them some homework. They do this homework. Then we come take pictures and then their house is live. That's about what the client understands. So it's our job to bring perspective to this process and not in a way to overwhelm them, but simply to say, hey, just a quick update. Wanted to see how things are going with your checklist. Also, our VA ordered title. I was able to take a peek through that, making sure that there wasn't any surprises on title. Everything looks awesome. We also did schedule in the photographer for this tentative day. I'm telling them all these things that I'm doing behind the scenes and boom, they have a huge perception of value because now they're realizing how much work I'm doing for them. Okay. So it's communicating the things that we're doing day to day and they go, wow, okay, great. Thank you. Like you're on top of it. And then they're not concerned because if they don't hear from you and they don't know what you're doing, people assume that you're doing nothing.
Right.
So it's our job to make sure that they know we're not doing nothing. We're just doing a lot of stuff that they don't need to worry about, ironically. Okay. So that communication is super, super, super important. And then back to doing everything ourselves. I can't tell you how many real estate agents that I have talked to that prefer to do everything themselves because they're the best at it. And they're going to do it the best and the fastest. And they really like rearranging their own photos for the MLS. They want to be the ones to, to put the first feature photo here and then make sure that, guys, get out of your own way if this is you. Okay. The fact of the matter is, if your lane of genius lies in serving your people, in negotiating contracts and making sure that you're setting good expectations with good communication, if you can bring somebody else in, even a part-time VA, $100 a week for 20 hours a week, like just that amount of leverage for them to be able to do the back end of things for you will allow you to sell more homes because you're not spending 4 to 5 hours a week just on one listing in the back end processes. Okay, this is how we create a more efficient business. Is we figure out the specific areas that we can do a little bit of leverage. We slow down, create the process in order that for that person to step-by-step read and understand that standard operating procedure. And then we execute. And then over time, after time, we can now go sell 50 to 60 listings a year because you're spending maybe 3 hours per file, one of those being the home valuation appointment, right? So now you've got a high touch, but a low time commitment to each file, but every client feels like they're being well taken care of.
Do you have a job or do you have a business? That's what we're talking about, right? Yeah. And so if you want to work for, what was it, 10 hours for $10 an hour, is that what the VA was costing there? Or if that, probably $5 an hour,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 7.
Do you want to work for $5 an hour? That's my question. If you do, God bless you. I just don't think that's why we show up every day. Leverage out the things, and you have to create the system. You still have to train, and there's a little pain in that realm. I get it. But once it's done, then you can go work for $500 an hour while the VA works for $5 or $10 an hour, right? Leverage this off. You shouldn't be doing that stuff. It's mind-numbing work. Go be the expert in the industry and do the things that you're awesome at.
100%. So to recap a couple of the specific tools and things that we leverage in order to create more efficiencies. Number one, have some sort of organized intake form, whether that's a physical form that you're filling out. I wouldn't recommend that. Like do it digital like Ed does, or outsource it like we do and send it to the client for them to do it themselves. Okay. That's going to save you an hour at least of time for them to do that. Number two, if you can bring in a VA or bring in a teammate or somebody who wants to do more administrative tasks to allow you to stay in your lane of genius, do that. Okay. Keep an organized filing system. Be disciplined in organizing the paperwork and keeping it in the file folders and putting notes in the CRM and creating tasks for yourself for each upcoming task that needs to be done. On our team, we've created, it's all internal now, of course, for the agents, so they don't have to worry about a lot of it, but we've created action plans within the CRM. So when we sign a listing client, we have an action plan that the transaction coordinator, listing coordinator will go in and update the stage. They will kick off this action plan. And now we have an action plan that's giving tasks to the VA, tasks to the agent, and tasks to the listing coordinator. So everybody knows what their next responsibility is. You can build this out for yourself. I've done it. Build it out for yourself. Have tasks waiting for you. Schedule them out based on the timeline of this listing, right? And then the communication standards. Have templates for emails built into your CRM or into your Gmail or Outlook or whatever it is that you use. Have templates built out with the link already in there for the Google form. Have a template built out for check-in emails. Have a template built out when you receive photos so that you can share those photos with the client. Having these things in place, taking a couple of hours to build some of these systems and build some of these processes out prior to needing them is going to reduce the amount of friction and the amount of time that you have to spend, and it's going to increase the amount of communication that you can have with the client. Okay. I'm going to open it up to any questions. We're not moving into the active phase yet, as you can tell. There's just so much to talk about with listings. But any questions, thoughts? Yeah.
What what CRM do you use for your actions and all the build out?
We use Follow Up Boss personally, but both like Chime, Sierra Interactive, Follow Up Boss, all of them have capabilities to build custom action plans.
We use Sisu, so which is more. It's not a CRM per se. It's a tracking mechanism, but it has all that back end action plan in that as well. So. Mm-hmm. Good question, though.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, ahas? Is somebody walking away doing something different than they're doing right now?
That's a good question.
My team's like, what do you mean, Rachel? We do it right now already.
My team's like, we already got this.
Yeah.
Love it. I feel like I'm in this in-between space. I'm a solo agent, but for like getting these systems set up, like I think they're just automatically in my brain. And so I'm working on offloading some of this stuff to a TC, but now it messes up my system because the system is like in my brain. So I'm between struggle where I'm like, no, wait, what's going on? Because I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
So
well, I think the big thing right there is making sure now you turn yourself into a manager or a boss, so to speak, more of a manager. So you used to do the work, so you know the system, right? Now you got to be the manager after you show somebody how to do it. You got to be the checkpoint that says, are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you doing it? And at some point that will be less and less because the person is either doing an awesome job and you trust them, or they're doing a crappy job and guess what? You're looking for somebody else.
Got to replace them.
I guess the main difference where I'm messing up, where I think these are the notes that I'm taking, is like creating this action plan list that previously existed in my head. And then all of that with the TC that is now doing it to check to make sure everything is being done.
Yep.
Yes, it's a process just to build the process, Kelly. So we've gone through so many iterations in the listing operations meetings and the processes that we need. And as markets shift, timing shifts for things and expectations need to be set differently. So the one thing that I would suggest that you do that how we kind of kicked off really creating these at a really high level was when you get a space, like give yourself 60 to 90 minutes and just open up a Google Doc or a Microsoft, whatever Word doc, and start typing every single thing that you do in a listing process, the information that you need, the emails that you want to send, the communications expectations that you need to set, every single thing that is in your head, just start getting it out into a document. And you don't even have to organize it. You don't have to format it well. Just get it out. Brain dump it all onto a document. Yep. Brain dump it out. Then leave it for a second. Come back to it the next day, right? And then you can start reading through it. And what I did is I literally started cutting, pasting, and reorganizing so it's coherent and it's logical and it makes sense, right? And then at that point was when I was able to say, okay, these are the things, I'm going to highlight these things that I have to do, right? These are my responsibilities, the communication, the expectation setting. These are things that I have to do. And these are the things, these tasky things, these, file saving things, these email sending things, these title ordering things. These are the things that my PC or my teammate can do. And then having both of those side by side or highlighted or bolded or however that is, you're working off of the exact same checklist. You each know the expectation of what the other one is going to do. And then now that you have the tasks done, you can use those tasks to create actual tasks in an action plan that makes sense in the CRM. So it's a little bit of a process, but it's a worthy process to create. Because again, slowing down, creating that document, organizing that document and creating that action plan in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you will be in a completely different space and your efficiency will go sky high because now everything is organized out into an action plan. TC has set expectations. She knows exactly what she's doing. You know exactly what your AORs, your areas of responsibility are, and you can move forward together with a ton of cohesion.
That's super helpful.
That's my recommendation.
Do you have something for clients who want an update every single day that they're under contract? Even though there's something happening in the background for like some of this stuff. Like I have one right now where some of this stuff, it's just, we're just churning through paperwork. And at the end of the day, like there is no update, but they want an update every single day.
So I've had a couple of those. I've kind of learned to be able to set expectations to say, hey, so my normal cadence is twice a week. I typically update Mondays and Thursdays unless something of note happens. That was kind of where I started. And then I asked them to tell me what their communication cadence was like. Somebody who needs an update every single day, I would number one, first try to revisit the standard. So say, hey, I totally get that you're looking for an update. I know every single day feels like a week. So every day that goes by and you don't hear that there's an update, I know that it feels like a really long time. I'll work to update you, but typically every other day is going to have a little bit more meat in regards to what kind of update I can give you. If they're absolutely they're going to be pissed if they don't hear from you every single day, I would move it to a text and just do a quick, hey, this happened, just got this back. I'll update you more tomorrow. Quick text. But I haven't had a ton of those, like a handful probably over the last 7 years. Again,
I think that's from the listing appointment on where you're setting expectations. And did they tell you early on in the process they wanted it every day? Or did you find that out late in the process?
I found that out as my relationship grew with them.
Yeah. So I think, again, if you have those systems up front, you would have already set those expectations. Now, our normal process, let's go with Rachel, Monday, Thursday, but obviously if anything happens that needs communicated, if it's a Tuesday or if it's a Monday or if it's a Wednesday, I'm probably going to pick the phone up and call you because it's that important. So I think there's a caveat there if you've got somebody super worried. And then even through your process, if you just check in once in a while via text with somebody like that, it calms them down a little bit, even if it's not the norm.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I had to learn the hard way in regards to communication. Because early on, you're trying to give them the best service possible. And so you're immediately following up with an answer, or you're calling them immediately back, almost in a frantic state to make sure that they're getting back to them in a timely manner. And over time, what I've learned is that if you slow down the pace of communication, most of their concerns will dissolve.
Right.
So instead of being the immediate texter backer, If they text you an emotionally charged text message, slow it down. Don't respond for 2 hours and then call them. Change the state. Do not communicate on the same medium with which you experience the emotion. Change the medium of communication. And boom. Oh, yeah, no, I'm okay. It was just, I'm out, like, it's amazing how it will just dissolve.
It's kind of like when you're mad and you write the email real quick, and then you have to walk away for a half hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, and you come back and that whole email changes. That's what you're doing on the opposite side now. You're forcing that, right?
100%.
I had a client
that allows.
Oh, sorry. I had a client.
Did you really?
Me over a light fixture that he initially told me that he wanted to get, and then I found him a cheaper price at Costco because it was, you get points and all that kind of stuff. And he put it up. He's like, "You told me," and I'm like, "Calm down." And I'm like, "It may not be as bright as you want it to be right now, but life is going to be fine." And then after that heated conversation, I stopped talking to him for a couple hours. He called me. He's like, "Man, I'm so sorry. The lights brightened up." I'm like, good Lord.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yep. It's amazing what, I think people will self-realize in real time. Because guys, we have to be empathetic. This is an incredibly stressful time for people. They're putting the home that they're living in on the market for strangers to walk through. We are meeting people in the most stressful situation of probably their lives, pending, besides deaths and family issues, right? So we have to be empathetic to the emotions that arise during this. And our job is to reduce the amount of emotion in those interactions, which means sometimes slowing down that communication for sure. So great tips, everybody.
Well, I was just
awesome,
thinking,
guys. Well, we're hitting.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Natasha.
Oh, I was just going to double back with what you were saying, Rachel, and on creating that expectations. We often do the thing where we might know it's Monday and Thursday. It's good to tell them it's Monday and Thursday. Saying, I will follow up with you twice a week. They don't know when that is, but when they know it's Monday and Thursday, it's Wednesday. They're freaking out. They haven't heard from you. Oh, right. She's going to call me on Thursday. And that makes a difference.
100%. That's a great point. Yep. Communicating and then fulfilling, right?
Are there any examples of what, like, if we're just setting up some of these systems for the first time? I mean, I have some set up. I use them sometimes, use them, don't. I just need to like refresh everything and do the Google Doc that you mentioned. Is there some template somewhere that we could reference for like how, like best practices that we can kind of, while we're going through the process, review?
For the Google form or for what
just like, I don't know. I think like basically I'm going to refresh everything or just go back through now that I'm getting to the point where I need, like where I want to start scaling. I'm going to go back through and review every single thing that I'm doing, like you mentioned, but I don't,
like an SOP.
Calling from a blank slate is tough. I mean, I can take notes verbally, but is there any other, like something that we could reference, like as we're going through and setting all this back up?
I'm happy. I can literally email you a PDF copy of our listing coordination SOPs, and you can take what you want out of it and R&D it and rip off and duplicate whatever part of it you'd like. I'm more than happy to share that.
I think we'd all love that, Rachel.
Yeah. You want our
Okay. I'll create a PDF.
I'll just first everyone.
No, I'll share with everyone. Yeah. Okay. I'll have it I'll share the files in the Growth Hub Facebook group because I can share this freely there. I'll try to link a couple PDFs that are open to everybody in the Real Academy and then the link down below. But I'll upload the listing coordination SOP so that you guys can see, and you'll see that we've broken it down by agent responsibility, listing coordinator responsibility, and VA responsibility. So you have to navigate around that a little bit. And then I'll also share a PDF copy of our Google form. So our Google form literally exactly mirrors our listing input form, the form that is necessary for the MLS that we use. So we mirrored it off of that and then just added some of our own bonus communication expectations and the marketing, suggestions and that kind of thing. But I'll share all of those very freely. You guys can totally rip them off and duplicate them and use them for your own businesses. Totally fine. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Wonderful CYA questions in that Google form too. Like, are you going bankrupt?
Yes.
So are you?
How did it happen?
Where do we go to find these? There's a Facebook group, you said?
Yes, there's a Agent Growth Hub Facebook group. on Facebook. And then I'll link a PDF copy of them in the links below. So if you go back into Real Academy and go to the replay, I'll put in my comments in there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great.
Awesome, guys. Great. Oh, Mark, same. We went under contract with a client like 4 years ago, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, I wanted to introduce you to our bankruptcy attorney." I'm like, "What?" So yeah, most of the things on there is from experience, from literally getting my butt handed to me at some point. So it happens to everybody. All right, guys, enjoy your Thursday. Thanks so much for the discussion. See you next week.
Thank you, Rachel.